So this is after our ARK Innovation Fund closed out its best month in its 9-year history. It's up 28%. It's thanks to amazing moves in Tesla, Spotify, and Roku. To be fair, this fund lost 69% in 2022. It lost 21% in 2021. Okay, but she's been on TV every month. She's been on this whole entire time. People been questioning her, ripping her apart and stuff like that. But today she's on CNBC talking about the future of technology, AI, Bitcoin, robotics. You could see a little pep in her step, which she should have because, she got a beaten and she received a lot of criticism, but her fund is doing much, much better. But she started throwing out some crazy forecasts, Daniel. I don't know if you got a chance to see the interview, but one of them was disruptive innovation, she calls it, right? So the sector. And this is a sector where I think she's basing on NASDAQ 100, which is because she said $13 trillion valuation, largest tech companies. She expects it to hit a $200 trillion valuation by 2030 in 8 years. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a made-up number. I feel like we're in an Austin Powers movie and we should put our pinkies to our faces. Yeah, I have no idea. So say that again, because you mentioned the 200 number before we went on, and I looked exactly like I look now. I look like a bobblehead.
We need sound clips when he goes, $1 billion, and then they make fun. Why don't you extra? It was like, what was it? It was a long time ago.
So she's saying the 13 trillion right now is the total, the
13 trillion is the market cap. 13 trillion is the
but what's the 200? How does robotics?
She thinks it's going to go into 200 trillion. Disruptive innovation, which is basically the NASDAQ 100, she thinks is going to hit a $200 trillion valuation. So it's going to grow 40% annually through 2030 over the next 8 years. We're looking at robotaxis, autonomous vehicles, EV, AI, robotics, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's wild.
Space.
She's very smart. I would take the under or gently bet against that. That's just astronomical. And this auto taxi BS, I am so sick of hearing this. How long have we been hearing that? Elon Musk himself has been saying what? You're going to be able to call your car from New York to California and come pick you up and all that kind of stuff. He was promising that crap years ago. I can't take that stuff seriously. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just can't. There is no way we are anywhere close to that, in my opinion.
Or within 8 years.
Exactly. Yeah. Hell, there's still there's investigations going on right now with Tesla about how they are quote unquote lying about their self-driving programs, technology, and all that. And just as a public warning, anybody out there that just fully trusts any brand of car to drive, anybody that does that is totally being very risky, and that's just dumber than hell. That's like hitting the lottery and taking up rock climbing without a rope. It's just dumb as can be. Why would you do something like that? But hey, to each their own. I'm not throwing stones, just pointing it out that I would bet the under on that.
Yeah, I mean, our generation is different, and I'll include you in there too, even though you're in the millennial generation. But seriously, it's when you look at the millennial generation, which is the Ubers, and I don't know how they think the Ubers and Lyfts are going to go. Yeah, autonomous, I get it, going to autonomous. I could see that even with public transportation and buses and stuff like that, and even airplanes, right? There's just a big order for autonomous, airplanes in the future and whatever that Delta ordered along with. I think it was, I don't know if it was Delta, but I think it was UPS and FedEx both, joined forces to get an order. Anyway, but when you're looking at EVs, I mean, these guys drive all the time. They're not going to spend 45 minutes as money to them, right? They could just fill up their car with gas very, very quickly, if in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever it takes. Or you have to charge it someplace else, right? Outside of your home, where those chargers, they're probably going to have hubs that you could charge them. Maybe they're a little quick, but it just doesn't make sense, right? For EVs. Autonomous, I don't know. I like driving. I don't want to sit in the back seat just to go to a store to get a snack or something, or go to the supermarket. I just don't see that. But let's get back to our forecast, because when you put numbers behind, by the way, I'm a big Cathie Wood fan. I'm a big fan of anyone who really believes in what they're saying. I am, I swear. Even if I'm totally in disagreement, I love hearing people that really believe in something. It's refreshing, right? Where you're not looking at polls and you're not bullshitting people. This is what you believe, and that's fine. And this has been her message the whole time. She's gotten annihilated, and when she was beating, Warren Buffett, and then all of a sudden the performance came down tremendously with the market last 2 years. Yeah, I get it. She took a beating, but she kept adding to her situations, and now you see what she's doing. But she's stuck to this narrative, right? And that's what you need to do as a fund manager, who people are betting on you and giving you their money. And that's why I always had a problem with BlackRock, where your job is to provide. You have all these funds in 401ks where your job, I'm investing in you so I could have great returns on my investments, that I can retire and live a happy life, improve, my family and everything. And you're forcing these companies to invest in ESG, which is a political agenda, not because it's good for your profits or dividends. It's because you're just pushing a political agenda. And a lot of these companies are not making money. We saw BP come out and say, listen, we're going to reduce our investments. They can't make money on it. I'm not saying there shouldn't be money going to ESG, but you shouldn't be forced. That's not your job as a portfolio manager, someone who runs the biggest funds in the world, 13 trillion in assets, right? Her job is to invest in disruptive innovation, and she has not blinked or whatever. And I respect that a lot. But with that said, you're talking about from 13 trillion to 200 trillion is 1,400% returns in 8 years. Okay. 1,400% returns in a market where the next year, 2 years are going to be really, 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 really tough conditions. Okay. Because we are going to go into a recession. We're going to see much more slower growth as we go forward. You need lower interest rates. You need a great market like you had for 12 straight years from 2009 to basically 2000, right? And even you got 2 extra years on there thanks to COVID and the amount of money that flooded in. But you need this low interest rate environment. You need money flooding in. You need good economic conditions in order for this to work. And you're not going to have those over the next 18 months, 24 months. So that's where those valuations come from. That's where you see the growth. How do you grow when you're seeing consumers close their wallets? You're seeing PC sales down tremendously. You're seeing technology stock. Chips are down tremendously, right? So people and companies are cutting their budgets, their advertising budgets. Look at Snap to just report. You're going to see the same Meta's reporting after the bell. Let's see. The expectations are low. The stock has run up. They'll probably report pretty decent numbers if I had to guess. But still, it's not going to show this massive growth in huge, jump in advertising. People are shutting their budgets. They're reducing their R&D. And how do you see that when you're reducing that? How do you see that kind of growth? I would make that forecast maybe when the Fed starts lowering, which would be 2024, maybe, and wait like 3-6 months because usually the market collapses once they reverse that strategy, believe it or not. Once they start lowering, if you look at history the last 40 years, that once they begin to ease and lower rates, the market tends to have the worst performance immediately right off the bat in that year. But I don't see that. I just don't see how that could happen. I think there's great companies. There's AI companies. There's so many names that she'll be involved in. But 1,400% return, like the whole, you don't have to make a call like that for 200 trillion. You can invest in the next company that's $300 million market cap. That's a private valuation that goes to 7, 8, 9, 10 trillion. That's where you get your massive gains from. But to say the whole entire market, because as you know, Daniel, a lot of these companies, you have the major technology companies, but as you come out with new innovations, it impacts other companies. The AOLs disappear, the BlackBerries disappear, the industry leaders disappear, right? You see other companies start catching up to the major ones. So you almost see the replacements in some of these market caps. It's not like all these little ones they're going to take market share. The total addressable market is a total addressable market. That total addressable market is not getting bigger. It's actually shrinking. So I don't see how you even come close to that. And that was just one of our forecasts. Another forecast was Bitcoin is going to go much, much higher than 500,000.
That was also by 2030, correct?
I don't know if I tried to look at the time frame. Okay, I didn't see the time frame. But
I believe the CNBC headline had 2030.
It's 20 years from now, regardless, if you're looking at the returns, you could say 100,000 and get your point across. 500,000 Bitcoin. If she really believes that Bitcoin is going to go to 500,000, I would probably take everything that she has in these funds and just put it in Bitcoin, right? If she really thinks it's going to go that high.
Well, hell no, Frank. 200 gazillion billion trillion is a lot bigger than 500,000.
You're looking at these gains where's Bitcoin today? Say it's 23,000 and go to, and I'm putting this because I can't figure it out directly in my head. But if you look at the 500,000 prediction, say it's 2030, I try to look for a time frame. It was probably around 2030. I don't know if she went out further than that. But you're looking at 2,100% gains compared to 1,400% gains. I think Bitcoin has a much better shot of going to 500,000 than, because you're not really going to need the economic help, I think. I think it could do well without the economy doing well. I just think it's getting adopted in so many countries. It's alternative to fiat and stuff like that. But I don't see how you get that high, or those 1,400% returns, the $200 trillion valuation, without the economy being in your favor and lower rates and more spending from companies, more innovation that spurs more innovation. I just don't see it. But 500,000, which is interesting.
I liked what you said, and I think you're making the point. Bitcoin doesn't need the environment of easy money policies and low interest rates to get to its target, like the valuation she's talking about. I agree with you, it doesn't need it, but it will get help from governments because governments will not change course. They will continue to print money and spend recklessly, hurt individuals, the lowest on the economic ladder, unfortunately, with their inflation policies. They will continue to do the same old, and that is positive for Bitcoin. Whether or not if you think it's a fraud, and I know a lot of smart people that still think it's a fraud, if you think it's a fraud, try to prove why. And just tell me, hey, this is why, because I bought Bitcoin and it didn't get sent to me, or I sent Bitcoin here and it didn't go there, or give me a specific reason, not hey, this wallet got hacked or this company stole my money.
Or
that's not Bitcoin. Or I accidentally sent it to Frank instead of Melissa or whoever the hell.
And she brought up that point. She brought up like how resilient Bitcoin and Ethereum have been through probably the worst period that could this is a 2008, 2009 crisis, right? That basically happened within crypto, right? And you had people cheating, lying. You had, it'll start with 3 Arrows, then Alameda and FTX, and you can go down the line, Celsius or whatever.
Yeah.
All these companies, right? So you see what happened with liquidity completely left this market. And she highlighted how even though these worst conditions, Bitcoin's still working, Ethereum, smart contracts, went off without a hitch. They did perfectly fine, which is very good because I don't think you're going to see worse conditions than what we saw last year with all these companies. Now there's going to be more regulation. Hopefully SEC gets off their ass and starts regulating this industry because there's a lot of innovation coming here. It's amazing. But the 500,000, I think you could easily said 100,000, but 500,000 Bitcoin. You are seeing more money come into Bitcoin. There's on a technical level, it hits every single checkbox. If there was 20 that it's overbought here, and it's probably going to come down. And you could also argue what I said before, Daniel, where you don't need, those market conditions. But so far, you're looking at Bitcoin following the markets, right? Risky assets are doing good. They're doing good. But let's see if that decouples. It has decoupled a few times.
And at some point it will, yes.
Yeah, and I think it will too. And the last thing she says, Amazon is going to have more robots and employees by 2030. I think they have 1/3 of the robots and employees. And there's something to be said about that. I mean, Amazon is one of the most incredible, innovative companies. Apple's not an innovative company, right? They always make devices. They look at everybody else and what they make, and then they say, you know what, we could do better, and we'll do this, right? They don't innovate and create something, right? That's why they're going to come out with their VR system, follow Meta, AR VR system, even the phone that came out after BlackBerry, just every single thing that they do, right? Now they're going to have the folding iPad, folding phones like Samsung going forward. But Amazon is an innovative company with smart homes, with its voice technology, pretty much reinventing the entire supply chain of how they do business. It's interesting to see how robots are going to play more of a role. And you could see, even with the robotics and AI. So AI is artificial intelligence. AI only works if you have massive amount of data that it learns from. So right now, when you look at the Chat GPT, which is unbelievable, you can't even get on if you try to get on. It's very hard to get on site. But I mean, it's incredible technology, taking everything that's ever been on the internet and predicting the future and writing for you. So think about, what does the world revolve around? The world revolves around content. Like, people want to be entertained, but even with their money, I always thought that was crazy. But you come up with a great enough story. We've seen in my industry, especially, they come up with a great freaking story. People want that story and they'll buy the story compared to them. If I say, hey, you know what? If I told them 10, 15 years ago to buy Microsoft, they're like, I don't want to buy Microsoft. It's not going to make me a billionaire. They want to buy the craziest thing, right? So they want to be entertained. This is a way to have amazing content all the time. We don't have to hire more people. And it is incredible technology. And now you're seeing something that threatens Google. You're looking at Google trying to invest in other platforms. But just goes to AI and robotics and the constant learning, which is a scary future. But it's here. It's freaking here, and it's scary when now AI, just like cloud, nobody really knew what cloud was until on a consumer level, now you know what cloud is, right? When you have your Apple phone, you want more storage and stuff, and you don't have to worry about storing on a hard drive on your phone or anything like that. You store it in the cloud. That's how AI is becoming. It's becoming like something every day that people are going to use, especially through that service. That's going to be interesting going forward. But that forecast, I agree with. Bitcoin going much higher to 500,000. I think it's going to 100,000 in the future. 500,000, a little crazy. And man, that other 40% annually through 2023 disruptive innovation sector to hit 200 trillion from 13 trillion. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a little out there, even though I'm a big fan of Cathie Wood.
It's a lot out there. We'll see. We'll continue to watch that with our popcorn, especially with the Fed meeting later this afternoon.
Listen, she brings it. And you can hate her, but I tell you, there's so many other people that are such full of shit that I watch. That is such full of shit, Daniel. They just will go on there.
I don't hate her. I think I don't have hate.
People who are bearish, and Mark goes up
wild,
and then the bullish. Like, she comes on all the time, same message. She came on, which I love, when her phone was getting its ass kicked. I love that. I love the fact that she went on TV for that, and a lot of people, even CEOs, don't do that. I always respect that, because you're going to have good times and bad times, and how you see the best leaders is when the shit hits the fan, how their team reacts, how they react, and how they get back on top. And you go through that, and it makes your team even stronger. So when I see people avoid that when things are bad, it's a big red flag. She's never done that. She's been on TV and people criticize her, whatever. She's been buying more. Glad it worked out for her. Let's see how it works out in the future. Again, we'll see. But I know even if it doesn't, she's constantly going to come on. And if you believe in her forecast, disruptive technology, she's not going to waver from that. So invest with her. If you think it's not going to happen, don't invest with her. But she's not going to go back and forth and have this massive forecast over the next 8-10 years and say, oh, I changed my mind. And that's what her investors love about her. And that's what you should love about her, because that's what, again, just like politicians, right? I don't want to get into politics, but you're supposed to vote for the politician who supports your views, right? And our politicians, even though we vote for them, do not support the constituents' views, right? It's their own views, which we've seen. She supports her own views. I admire her for that.